presentation, one more physical aspect of the building we want to show everyone on our tour here is our heating units in the rooms. Frank mentioned this is 1960s era. They are controlled by technology called pneumatic control, which is air flowing through it. And the pneumatic controls, it's technology that doesn't hardly exist anymore. There are very few experts that know how to repair pneumatics. Those individuals are getting pretty rare. The parts for heating units like this are hard to find. In fact, we've actually, Frank, you've made some, haven't you?
Yep, we use bigger hammers when we work on it.
That's right. So we have 1960s registers and more modern ones over there. You know, much more efficient. They don't need the maintenance, the repairs, things like that. Anyone can come in and work on them. So again, with the referendum, it would be much more cost efficient if we could replace all of these. You know, if you've noticed any on our walk, we have a large number of 1950s, 1960s units here in the building. If you can buy in volume and install them in volume, it's much more cost effective for our taxpayers, for the school district, if we can do them in volume, versus what have we done in the school year?
We do 3 a year. So
3 a year. Okay. It's okay to do things on a cycle, but again, that's not the most cost effective way to do it.
By the time we get done, if you do 3 a year, the first ones will be.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's a good example of the heating units here in the building. So, now I could have you get the one light. We'll get started with our slide presentation. Perfect. Just like being at the movies, right?
I can go get you
Popcorn
popcorn.
downstairs, right? Thank you again, everyone, for coming. We have a few slides, and then if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask questions as we're going through our slides. We've done our introductions downstairs. Again, I'm Jim Bina, District Administrator. Also with us tonight, Lisa, our Business Manager. Lisa, of course, is an alumnus. Many if not everyone in the room knows Lisa. Lindsay is with CISA 10. She is one of our main consultants we work with from CISA that is helping to guide our referendum work. And from Baird Financial, we have Debbie Brunette. And Debbie is going to be talking about some of our slides as well. And that'll be a great opportunity for anyone in the audience to ask tax-related questions, financial-related questions. Okay. We have 2 questions on the April 2nd ballot coming up on April 2nd. One question you'll hear is operational. Okay, the operational referendum, we are asking for $850,000 a year for 5 years. This will have zero impact on our taxes. One of our referendums is going away, the one that was passed in 2018. As that goes off the books on June 30th, this one would replace that. Okay, what does the term operational mean? Operational is very similar to what you might think, the operations of the district. Day-to-day operations, salaries, benefits, transportation, programming. As we know, over the last 5 years in particular, costs of so many things have increased. Salaries have gone up, gasoline has gone up, food has gone up, and those are all things, of course, that our budget has to pay for here in a school district. So, and unfortunately, our state funding, as that inches up, costs have skyrocketed and surpassed that. So that is why we're going to operational referendum. The capital referendum that we are asking our taxpayers to vote on is $7.3 million for maintenance, repairs, and improvements. Okay, that would be $7.3 million borrowed over 20 years. We had a community group that we have met with, taxpayers from all over the school district. We started meeting with them last August. We've done extensive tours of both of the buildings. We've identified the areas that need attention the most. We've prioritized that list, and everything that we've talked about tonight and then some, the cost would be $7.3 million to upgrade our buildings, to improve our buildings. One of the things that I like to talk about is wants versus needs. Everything that is in the $7.3 million, we feel it is a need. You know, we see articles, we go online, we see things about athletic domes and turf football fields, and those are great things. Those are great things in some communities if they're at that point. But those are kind of wants. Those are real wants. We believe we have needs here, and we're going to our taxpayers with real things. Getting rid of asbestos, getting rid of old boilers, upgrading technology. It's not really technology if it's 60 years old, right? Upgrading real needs. So that would be the $7.3 million for capital repairs. How did we get here? I touched on this a little bit. In fact, this picture shows our community group that met in that boiler room downstairs where we were about 20 minutes ago back in August. They took the same tour that we did tonight. Okay, and we identified all those types of things. We came up with a plan, we came up with goals, and we prioritized what do we really need to keep our buildings functional, effective, and efficient. Okay, we came up with a plan. CISA helped guide those conversations. That was presented to the Board of Education. Okay, stepping away from Port Edwards, looking at referendums in general. Okay, in 1993, there were caps put on public school funding. There were more caps put on in 2010. Since 1990, you can see there have been almost 3,800 referenda statewide in Wisconsin because state funding has not kept up with the needs of our buildings and our services. Okay, on the April 2nd ballot, there's 105 questions, 35 for debt, 70 for revenue increases, and you can see the data there. 82 questions, 29 for debt, 53 for revenue increases in 2023. Okay, and there's a pass rate and a fail rate from last April. Port Edwards, again, coming back local a little bit, you know, I'm very thankful and very proud of this community. I've only been a school leader here my second year, but for decades and decades leading up, we've had one referendum. That was in 2018. Does anybody know the last referendum before that? The last referendum in our community?
To build the elementary school.
To build the elementary. So it would have been 67, 68? Yeah, 68. So we went 50 years without a referendum, okay? And we've been good stewards of our money, good stewards of our building, and we finally reached that point in 2018 where we needed a little bit of a jump start with our funds, and we're back there again now in 2023. For example, in the last, I believe, 15 years or so, schools like Pittsville, Wisconsin Rapids, other area school districts, Stevens Point, it's not uncommon for them to have run 8, 10, 12, 15 referendum, and continuous referendum, continuous referendum condition. You know, we're doing our third one in about 60 years now. So we feel we've identified some real needs. Okay, I talked a little bit about this before. Why are so many referenda happening statewide? Revenue caps were set on public schools in 1993. There's per pupil values, they really differ from one school district to another based on your tax base. So schools are funded per pupil, but not every school district gets the same amount per pupil, okay? The caps have been frozen and reduced depending on the legislature and the governor who's sitting in the governor's mansion. They've played politics with our schools for decades, especially since the 1990s. And again, unfortunately, schools have gotten the short end of the stick all too often when it comes to funding. One of the things, if you take a look at the bottom bullet point there, if anyone has heard of ESSER funding, okay, ESSER, that was federal COVID funding. That really bolstered our schools. We were able to spend that on employees and building and grounds starting in about 2021 to 2023. That money is gone now, okay, that's sunset. That kind of was a little bit of a spare tire for us and kind of lift us along toward the end of our referendum. ESSER funding, federal funding is gone now. So we're really at a point this upcoming school year where that referendum is critical and very, very important. Okay, a little bit more about our operational referendum. Again, the school district is asking our voters for $850,000 per year for 5 years. That has zero impact on your taxes, okay? It's non-recurring, which means it ends in 5 years. You'll hear of school districts that have a recurring referendum. Until the taxpayers vote to end it or modify it, it will go on forever. We have a 5-year non-recurring referendum. Okay, again, operational, it's to maintain our educational programs and pay for our expenses. As I mentioned, it would take the place of the 2019 operational referendum that is sunsetting on June 30th. It ends this fiscal year. And can't emphasize it enough because that's important to all of us as taxpayers. There's no tax impact. It would not increase the taxes because it is replacing an already existing referendum. The capital referendum for $7.3 million. These are some of the projects. I'd like to invite you back next Tuesday night. We'll be doing a tour of the elementary. We're starting at 6 o'clock at Ed Hoyer Elementary School. We're going to be looking at some of the things that we need to replace over there. The chiller cooling tower needs to be replaced. Cafeteria flooring, which Mr. Neeb mentioned has the asbestos underneath. Cafeteria tables, I don't know how old those are, Frank, but they really don't function as well as they used to. They need to be replaced and upgraded. Boiler system replacement. And our bathrooms are not ADA compliant. They are too narrow. Individuals that would need a wheelchair or other apparatus to get in there, they can't get into our bathrooms. So some of the stalls are, if you'll see them, they're very rusty, they're very old. Our custodians have worked very hard to keep them looking good and functioning well, but again, it's hard to fight age. Frank, anything you'd like to add about the elementary, or does anybody have any questions about the elementary? Otherwise, we'll move on. There's a good look at the tiles where they come up, and asbestos has had to be abated, had to be closed off. Our projects here, we have masonry repairs. A lot of those are exterior, sidewalks, parking lots, things like that. Concrete needs to be replaced. Water lines under the buildings. A lot of our water lines, if they're this big around, the water coming through the hole might be that big inside. They've built up through the years, and those pipes are deteriorating, and that's an expensive fix. We were in the tech ed room. The asbestos flooring needs to be abated. It needs to be sealed. It needs to be removed. Our unit ventilators, which is what I started our meeting with tonight, the 1950 and 60 units, they need to be replaced. And roof exhaust system is also very old and outdated. District-wide, electrical and sewer upgrades. We have some very old electrical lines that need to be updated. We have to update our existing bathrooms. Okay, when I talk about updating bathrooms, the stalls, a lot of the fixtures, we've been doing those piecemeal. It would be nice to be able to do a large-scale update on our bathrooms. Digital controls. When I mentioned pneumatics, the pneumatic controls, when we turn our thermostat at home, there's a control system within the unit that regulates the amount of heat or the amount of cooling. Those controls are very, very old in most of our district. If we could upgrade to a digital control set, they'd be much more efficient, much more effective. If you've heard of any of our kids complaining, sometimes rooms are a little cool, they're a little hot. It's, it's definitely a safe environment, both buildings, but it's really challenging to regulate the heat and regulate the cooling because of the old controls we have. We would like to upgrade security cameras. Our phone system is getting quite old, and our notification system upgrade as well. Cat 6 is the fiber optic that runs through both buildings that controls the internet. That would give us a more high-speed internet. And Frank mentioned generator replacement down that would be in our high school here, Frank?
Yes.
Okay, downstairs. Okay, and the elementary as well. Any questions? Okay. All right. Debbie, is this where you step in?
You can't unless you want to keep going.
You're doing a wonderful job. Yeah, no, it'll be all you. Debbie Brunette from Baird is here, and she's going to talk a little bit about our financial impact. Welcome, Debbie.
Good evening. So our team's job in the process is to take the estimates that CISA put together of the projects and the needs and to create an estimated tax impact, which I know is very important as you look at the cost of the project. I'll share with you the assumptions that we used in order to create the estimates. The numbers that you'll find most important as we start is based on the assumptions used, the estimated impact if you had a $100,000 property value, and this is the fair market value or equalized value on your tax bill. It would be a monthly increase of $11.92 estimated, which would be an annual increase of $143. We also included other common average priced homes, $150,000 or $200,000. Out on the district's website, you can type, there's a space where you can type in your actual fair market value and get an estimate specific to your home. We thought it really important tonight to give you a starting point for the estimate that is here. Those estimates are based on some planning assumptions. So one of those planning assumptions is that it's being spread out over 20 years. So in municipal bonds, that's the maximum amount we can spread it over for each issue. And so we've spread it out over the maximum to help keep the annual impact as low as we can for the taxpayers. We're using a 5.5% interest rate. Now, if you go and you were to do a home equity loan right now or refinance your home mortgage, or rates might be higher than this. School districts have very good credit rating, and because they're allowed to issue tax-exempt bonds, schools are often provided lower interest rates than we would get in the residential market. This planning rate is conservative because we've been talking about this and running these estimates for several months now. And we know that if the referendum passes, it will take time in order to actually borrow and move forward. We wanted to leave cushion so that if rates were to adjust, that we would be able to come back with an actual amount equal to or less than or have the greatest chance. So right now, if we were to borrow today, it would be less than this. But we're providing that cushion just in case. At the time we go to borrow, the district will lock in at the best rate at that time. And so if the rate is lower than this, which we hope it is, the district could pay it back faster and therefore save interest costs, or it could choose to keep the schedule the same and it would lower the tax impact. So the tax impact that we're sharing on this slide is a maximum impact that we're estimating for you. We're optimistic that it could be lower.
I'm taking kids out for this part, okay, sorry.
Not exciting?
Not exciting.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
It's a lot of numbers, I know. The other planning assumptions we use, we've assumed 2% property value growth. We know that lately that has been much higher. Some of that has been inflationary, so we want to recognize the real growth that can occur. And again, this is the maximum estimate. So a couple of final questions that I tend to get when we talk about these impacts. One is this a good time to borrow? I've heard interest rates have been going up. Is this still an okay time for us to do this? And this visual represents, the bottom chart represents a 20-year borrowing, because that's how long the school districts can borrow for each issue, for the last 30 years, for the highest credit rating. And so on the far right is where we were on February 21st, so just last week. And we can see that rates today, although we have come up from the historic lows, they're still lower than they were 30 years ago when we were borrowing. In the upper right-hand corner is a one-year snapshot of rates. And so we can see this early fall where rates really were going up. We heard a lot about that in the news. What we haven't heard as much about is that rates actually have recently come down. We're seeing rates today that we were seeing a year ago. So it still is a good time to borrow. We are continuing to watch the rates, and we have put a conservative planning estimate in, the estimates you see today. And then the final question we commonly get is, yes, we'll lock in rates the lowest that they can be on the day we borrow if it passes. The other question we commonly get is, if rates go down, can the school refinance like we can our home loan? Or if dollars are available, can they prepay on their debt to save interest costs as well? And the answer is yes. Both of those things are available to the school district, and they're watching that just like you would watch it to help, again, do best by the taxpayers. Am I explaining that okay? Are there any other questions that are popping up? If you think of some later, I'll stay and I'll be able to answer them for you. Can you think of anything else that I didn't add that you want to?
I think that's really good. I think that's really good. In closing, these are the questions that you will see on the ballot. We have two questions, as we've discussed. The first question is for the operational referendum. Okay, $850,000 per year for 5 years, beginning with the upcoming 24-25 school year and ending in the 28-29 school year for non-recurring purposes, consisting of operational and maintenance expenses. Again, question number one, that is our operational, that will not increase taxes for the taxpayer. Question two is more, yes,
How much is the payment of the loan that we have right now? Number one is replacing.
600.
$600,000.
It's not a loan,
Well,
right, it's 600,000 that we,
so 600 versus
850.
Okay.
Right. And that's a good question, Debbie. I was actually asked that last night. How can 850,000 replace 600,000? One would think that if 850 is coming in, that the taxes would go up. Why is the tax rate able to stay flat with 850 replacing 600?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are, the district uses our forecasting tool for an operational budget, which allows Lisa to go in and type in the detail and see. And the two biggest contributing factors, one is that the state, its per pupil amount that Jim referenced earlier, multiplied by the students, which is the key part of the formula, isn't providing dollar for dollar more revenue. So some of this 850 is making up for the state not keeping up. It's not all new money. The other reason is because of the way you fit in the state formula. They provide state aid. That's one assumption that I should have talked about on the debt as well, because it impacts there. But they share in the cost. And so for you, based on how you fit in the formula, as you need to spend more, they help provide levy relief to help offset it. So those are the two key reasons why the 850 wouldn't increase the estimated impact would increase over what you're currently paying when the 600 goes to 850.
Sounds good. Thank you. Did that help answer the question? Okay. Our second question is the capital referendum portion of the referendum. Shall the school district of Port Edwards in Wood County, Wisconsin be authorized to issue pursuant to Chapter 67 of Wisconsin statutes bonds in an amount not to exceed $7,300,000 for the public purpose of paying the costs of district-wide facility improvements, again consisting of renovations, building infrastructure, everything that we talked about the heating, the tuck pointing, the boilers, the asbestos. That is our capital referendum question 2. And that would increase taxes approximately, well not approximately, but at the most, $143 per $100,000 of household that you own. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to contact me. My name, my email address, my phone number. We also have a very thorough website. If you go to the Port Edward School District website, you'll see 4 or 5 large blocks at the bottom of the page. The first block is labeled referendum. If you click on that referendum block, it'll go to all things about the referendum. There's videos about our school. There's more, the same information tonight, and then some. There's also an estimated tax calculator that will estimate the tax impact for you if you vote yes on the referendum. So it's a handy tool to look at and play with.
What's the impact if the power is denied?
What will happen if the referendum doesn't pass?
Yeah.
We would have to look at all of our programming. We would have to look at raises for employees. We would have to look at everything that we do, our purchases, our projects. We'd have to do a lot of deferred maintenance. For example, the tuck pointing, we would go for maybe doing, $25,000 a year. Maybe we have to cut that down to $10,000 a year when it actually needs to go the other way. We would continue to use 1950s, 1960s heating systems that are getting tougher and tougher to work with. So we would look at all those things.
Just to add to that also, a little bit of background. When we came in and did the facility audit, we had quite a long list of items that really needed upgrading, repaired, things like that. Your staff here is absolutely phenomenal, and it's pretty unheard of to have the referendum history that Port Edwards does. That said, when we brought the list to the staff, there's no way that any community could do that much, and so we had a task of narrowing it down to what was actually needed. So, Don and I might walk in a building and say, you guys should really upgrade your lighting fixtures and things like that. That's not necessarily a dire need right now. Everything that's on the list right now is a dire need right now. All the wants, there really isn't any. There's nothing cosmetic. It's the foundation, the guts of the building to keep it running.
Yeah, for example, the electrical systems in the 2 schools, the electrical system in this school is ancient, and if you're an electrician, you would not want to work on it. The electrical system at the elementary is quite old. It's actually right at its replacement age, but what we did is we looked at it and said, can we take the tower down on the whole school, cycle all the breakers, do hotspot checks and make sure we don't have loose connections and bad parts in the electrical system, and extend its life. And that's what we chose to put in here versus a replacement cost, to try and extend that life. So we're trying to do everything at a bare minimum.
Yep, exactly. Frank has kind of done whatever he can to mitigate every situation the best that he can, but there comes a point where, like Don said, contractors won't even work on it anymore. So we're kind of at a point now where we have to do a few things to keep it running. It's a very good question.
Thank you.
I haven't heard anything about security. Except, I don't know, that's all.
Sure, absolutely. A part of the capital referendum would go for more security cameras around both buildings, and we would upgrade to more of a high definition type of camera. So that would go toward the security. We do have fully locked entrances in every building, right? Yes.
I'm hearing that it's gonna be another body. Full-time body.
Oh, school resource officer, absolutely. Yep, we are looking at partnering with the village to pay for a school resource officer. Who would be part-time in the school and part-time out on patrol. And that would be about a 50-50, maybe a 60-40 venture with the village. And we're looking at funding outside of this. We're looking at additional funding to pay for that resource officer.
Which would come from where?
That would come from a Fund 80. So Fund 80 is a community resource fund that the school board can actually, they can vote for to levy that money. So Fund 80 would pay for the community resource officer, the school district's portion of that. And the village, I believe, is looking at grant opportunities to fund their portion of it.
That's always good. Temporary, that's temporary.
Correct. And they would have to address that portion of it.
Yeah, and along with that, the district has done a phenomenal job applying for any grant or federal funding aid that is available,
Yes.
which is also rare and awesome to see. In regards to the safety, that does tie into the security, camera, telephone, and notification system upgrade. To upgrade all of that, because every single aspect is outdated, you need to do the entire thing. It's kind of an all or nothing type of deal. So to get the system that is really needed, you need to do the upgrade of the Cat 6 and that type of thing. So that's something that was decided upon by the Facility Advisory Committee, which was members of the community.
Is there any talk of, so the tuck point, is there any talk of hiring a person for buildings and grounds person? And that's all he does, that's his job.
Hiring one person to do it.
Well,
The scope is way too big.
I know it is,
Yeah,
but if you have one guy year round instead of two,
It's,
I know what you're talking about, but
It's
I really-
primarily done in the summertime.
Yeah,
Really, it's gotta be like a big slam approach to get all of that
it's
tucked
gotta be
in.
a team of people doing it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And equipment and
Scaffolding and
Scaffolding,
equipment and those
lifts.
companies come in with all that.
And then you've got like the insurance issues and yeah,
All that.
Yeah.
That goes with it. And
I
that's
just
got,
know that's what Aspirus has done. The hospital system, they've hired people, full time. That's a good job, building the grounds.
and Frank is our full-time building grounds. And again, they're a much larger entity than us, much larger entity.
And a lot of times, those people that they're hired on as like a full-time or like building grounds or whatever,
Right.
they are certified to do that type of work versus if we would hire somebody, it would be, you know,
Right.
probably somebody from the community or whatever, and they may not be covering the insurance aspect of it, as I would assume.
I could show you spots that way back, like, say 50 years, they did have people do that. And the gentleman that walked us around, he goes, "Oh, this ain't right." What they did, you know, looks like they patched it through, but they had some stuff that shouldn't have been. So it actually did more damage.
right.
Need the right people to do the job right.
the leading cause of damage to buildings is water. Everybody worries about fire, but water is your number one problem. Water can actually flow uphill under the right conditions, so you really want to have a professional doing that work.
Are you done with slides here?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to turn the lights on?
Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely. Yep.
What a great idea, Frank.
There we go, thank you.
Oh, that's.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming. You know, for some of you, it was a great tour of the old school again. But again, it looks so beautiful from the outside and the inside, and it is. But when we get down to the details, you can see there's a real need. And we appreciate your support. We appreciate you coming tonight. And we hope that you talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to some of your classmates you might have gone to high school with here, and help support our beautiful old buildings so that we can continue to keep them running strong for several more generations. So I want to thank you. We'll stick around, Lindsay and Don, myself, Lisa, Debbie, if you have any questions, we'll be here and we'll hang around for a little while. Thank you.
And we are winning the basketball game, 47-20.
Wow.
So,
Good deal.
and there's still popcorn. So.
You didn't bring any up.
I probably should.